Hi everyone, Emily from Emily's Visions here. Nice to be here again. I've just been away actually on a bit of a spa break just for one night, and it's just amazing to do something different and get somewhere else. It really helps to kind of clear your head, I think. Even though as it got funny, I realised how tired I was once I started relaxing, and so I can understand why people just keep going, keep going, keep going, because you never have to really focus on that well until you get ill, and then. So obviously, it's better to kind of make little stops and regenerate yourself every now and again. And if you do that every now and again, then you're probably not less likely to develop a huge problem that you don't know about until the doctor has to give you bad news. So today I just wanted to talk about the sort of thing of a storm in a teacup, and I thought it kind of relates to gaslighting a little bit. When you have an issue, or maybe it's not an issue, maybe you're just sharing your direct experience. Now, some people, when they communicate about a subject, they're not actually sharing their direct experience. Maybe they read an article about something, or maybe they have friends who have experienced that, so they know a bit about it, but they haven't actually got direct experience. It's still second hand. People do love to pass such experiences off as having a direct experience, but it's really important, I think, not to trick yourself into thinking you know something when you don't, because you'll actually prevent yourself from having that experience. Because you'll go, oh, I've done that. I know everything about that. And I've done that when I've studied things. Sometimes my mind goes, oh, I already know this thing. And it's like, it stops me from reading that bit of the book. It stops me from exploring. It stops me from understanding. Anyway. So I find, like, when people say storm in a teacup, they tend to, it's okay if you apply it to yourself, then I think that, you can go, oh, it's a phrase, it means like, oh, this too will pass. It's not such a, it seems like a big deal right now, but it's only a tiny thing. But when other people say it to you, or maybe not the phrase, but just kind of have this vibe of, well, what you're talking about isn't that big, don't worry about it. I think it's really important, because I think it's important for us to recognise when we have direct experience, and that is a truth. It doesn't matter whether they want to accept that or not. It is a truth. If we have a storm in a teacup, it's our teacup, and we are the ones who know what's going on there. We know what's important, and we know what the dynamics of it is. So instead of dismissing it and thinking, oh, it's just a little thing, or it's not important to so-and-so, so therefore it shouldn't be important to me, which a lot of people, they just want peace of mind by people, to a certain extent, moving on to a subject that they prefer, which again, this is fine. If you're having a conversation and you want to keep things sweet, then fine, let them change the subject. But be aware that they're changing the subject, and be aware that they're not wanting to talk about the thing that you brought up, because maybe you yourself want to look at it yourself quietly, in your own space later on. I just wanted to say that when we have a storm in a teacup, it might seem like an experience of a little world. It might feel like a very personal thing, and therefore not interesting to the outside world. And I've had this a lot, and I've thought, well, I don't really know how I feel, because I haven't got the perspective of looking from the other things, from the outside, lots of other people's opinions and things. I don't have those things, so I don't really know how I feel, because I can't make a sort of, a watertight, logical conclusion about how I feel about such and such. But I just wanted to talk about it because I think it's important to own the teacup. If it's our teacup, it's our feeling, and we're the expert on it. And I think really we should celebrate ourselves when we have a direct experience. Even if it's a negative direct experience, it's still a direct experience. And it's not necessarily an experience that other people will empathise with. But that doesn't mean that we can't empathise with it. So, I just wanted to, so it's just about, I feel like I want to say about how people very often, when we start opening up about our feelings, people tend to belittle them. Or I have experienced people belittling mine. And it makes me feel almost like unqualified to live my own life, which is ridiculous, because nobody else is qualified to live my life only I am, you know, whether people like that or not. So I'm trying to own my storm in a teacup. I'm trying to recognise when I've had little direct experiences, and I may not be able to talk to them about other people, but for myself, I can recognise them and I can celebrate them, and I can be my own little expert on that storm. And I've had this sometimes when people cannot imagine that I've had a direct experience, or if they can, then they don't feel I've experienced it in a valid way, which again is impossible because I'm the person who had the experience. And I think very often, particularly on the internet, you can express a view, and I think it's important to express direct experience, or at least be honest when you're actually just expressing views that you've come to through study, through reading things, and through having seen other things that people have posted. If you're having a direct experience, people often will react like maybe it's not a direct experience. Maybe you're just shooting your mouth off about something that you may not have a kind of heart, mind and body experience of. And so it's very easy then to be gaslit and to think, well, and especially if you're feeling down, and if I feel vulnerable from my seizures, I think, well, maybe I'm not completely correct there then, you know, and I let them then take hold of what's going on. And make me and tell me that, you know, what I've got there is a little storm in a little teacup, and it's not really important, and it's not anything I could draw a conclusion on. And so it's been important for me, particularly as an epileptic, where I tend to forget things too, so it's hard for me to hold on to experiences that I've had, and then somebody else comes along and they go, oh, well, that didn't really happen, or it didn't really happen like that, you know, or no, you don't really understand the topic. And I can feel then suddenly all of my empowerment that I've gained from having that experience, a positive experience, a negative one or a neutral experience, can just be completely blown out of the water because, you know, it's made into a small thing that can be easily dismissed. But I think it's important to recognise when you're an expert at something. And it's important to be an expert, even at tiny little things. I know how I feel in this situation. I know how I'm going to feel in that situation, and I can tell you that, and whether you accept it or not, I know it is my personal truth. So that's just it for today, and it's a real pleasure to communicate with you again, and keep watching my energy and keeping my stamina up, and hopefully I'll be able to talk more in the future. Nice to talk to you.